Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and welcome the 2016 winner of the Indianapolis Prize and the Lilly Medal, Professor Carl Jones.
Thank you very much. I'm overwhelmed. I'm totally overwhelmed to have won the Indianapolis Prize. I never believed I could win, since I thought to be successful in a competition like this, one had to do high-profile work on well-known species, such as elephants, pandas, or polar bears. But we've seen tonight that is necessary, and one of the finalists even works on seahorses. Isn't that just tremendous? I've spent my career working on species that few of you will ever have heard of. Obscure creatures such as the lesser night gecko, a lizard less than 2 inches long, the pink pigeon, and the golden fruit bat. In their own way, these little-known species are just as exciting and interesting as the large and spectacular. It is a measure of the maturity of the Indianapolis Prize that it recognizes this work. Learning about different species has always brought me great joy. And tonight, we have seen with some of the other finalists just what great joy there is in studying some of the rare and obscure species. One of my earliest dreams was to have my own zoo. Not just any zoo, but I wanted one with every species of animal in the world. As I grew older and learnt more about animals, the list of all the animals I was going to have grew longer and longer. Then one day, I had the realization that I could never fulfill my dream since there were far too many animals. And how could I possibly dig a pond big enough in which to keep a blue whale? It was a bittersweet moment. At 6 years old, I realized and glimpsed the world's great variety. This is what the Indianapolis Prize is about, celebrating diversity and our efforts to conserve it. I have seen firsthand the importance of the Indianapolis Prize since I have previously been a finalist. The philosophy is powerful. Conservation can work, and we need to embrace and reward conservation success. Mike Crowther, Karen Burns, Myrta Pulliam, and their team are inspiring us, demonstrating how species conservation can drive a much bigger agenda. However, visionary ideas can only be realized if you have good supporters and collaborators. The prize has received support from Eli Lilly and Company Foundation since its inception, and this wonderful gala is presented by Cummins Incorporated. Following in the footsteps of previous Indianapolis Prize winners is a huge privilege. They are all my heroes. I grew up reading and being inspired by the works of George Schaller and Ian Douglas Hamilton. And the career of the last winner, Pat Wright, and my own have developed in parallel, as Pat worked on Madagascar and I worked on the neighboring island of Mauritius. We all stand upon the shoulders of those who have inspired and mentored us. I have been lucky to have worked closely with 3 biologists who were visionary in their outlook. These were Gerald Durrell, Don Merton, and my guest of honor tonight, Tom Cade and his family, who have supported me in various ways throughout my career. Thank you all very much. Gerald Durrell showed the world how a modern zoo should operate, and the great role zoos have in helping us learning about animals and how to manage their populations both in captivity, but also most importantly in the wild. Jerry and his wife Lee, who is with us tonight, provided much wise counsel. For more than 3 decades, the Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust has been successful in preventing the extinction of more species than perhaps any other organization. And this has been done by taking the techniques of zoo management and applying them to wild populations. This is the future for zoos, taking their skills into the field. Tonight, we also have with us my colleagues, Leslie Dickey, our Chief Executive Officer, and Richard Young, Durrell's Head of Conservation Science. Durrell has been successful, and I have been successful in the work that I've been doing in Mauritius because we've been happy to work with others. In the early 1980s, I was fortunate to collaborate with the New Zealander Don Merton, who helped with species recovery projects and the restoration of Round Island, which neighbours Mauritius. For many years, Don made regular visits to Mauritius to show us how to restore islands. And he also helped us recover the population of the echo parakeet, which was then the world's rarest parrot. One of the really great influences in my life has been Tom Cade, and I feel very strongly that perhaps it should be him that's standing here tonight rather than me. It was Tom who was responsible for restoring the peregrine falcon to North America and showed us how to manage endangered bird populations. When the rest of the conservation world were prepared to give up on the Mauritius kestrel, which declined to just 4 wild birds, it was Tom who was convinced we could save it, and we were able to increase its population, so we now have well over 300 birds. The kestrel was an extreme example, but we have 5 species of birds that we have recovered from populations of a dozen or less. Also 3 species of reptiles and a fruit bat that may have been lost without our interventions, not to mention many species of plants. You've probably gathered I'm an optimist. I have always believed that we have the ability to save all species. And species work can drive whole ecosystem restoration. Hence, the work we started on Round Island with a few reptiles led to the rebuilding of a whole ecosystem. Of course, when restoring systems, we have to think about the plants as well. Most zoologists think that plants are there to feed their animals. The reality is far more fascinating with elegant interactions that we often overlook. I have worked with many botanists who have been a great inspiration. I am pleased tonight to have as my guests Peter and Diane Wise-Jackson, who have been friends since the 1980s when they worked with us in Mauritius. Peter is the president of the Missouri Botanical Gardens, who are doing so much to help us with the conservation of the flora. I also have to thank my colleagues in Mauritius, my colleagues in the government, whose national park staff have been very close friends for many years. But I have to emphasize that saving species is only possible with long-term support, and we have been lucky to have tremendous partners who have worked with us in Mauritius, and they have sponsored the work of the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation. In addition to those who have already acknowledged, I have to mention our partners. I've already mentioned the work of Tom Cade and the Peregrine Fund, but I should mention Chester Zoo and the World Parrot Trust, who are just a few of many. There are some important lessons that we must all take and make note of, and these are to some extent the teachings that come from the winners of the Indianapolis Prize. Individuals can and do make a difference. It is not committees. It is not committees and organizations that create change, but people with drive and vision who can work with others and develop collaborations. All species are savable, but there is no quick fix, and it takes decades. Small steps can be the start of a great journey. You start with one species, whether it is a parrot or a bat, and provided you nurture it, It can lead on to the conservation of other species and the protection and rebuilding of their habitats. The world is a wonderful place with its great diversity, unfathomed riches, and great complexity. In my career, I've been blessed to encounter and be involved with some wonderful wildlife. Humans need contact with nature. It is natural diversity that enriches our lives. I think of my family who is so supportive of my work, to Paula and her mum Glenys, and our young children, Ollie and Hileri, who show what joy children get from the world around them. I hope they will get the same opportunities to have close and meaningful contact with wildlife and to be able to do their bit to look after our life-giving planet. I would like to finish on another personal note. My grandparents were friends with the great Welsh poet Dylan Thomas, and I grew up in West Wales being influenced by his poetic imagery. A poem which has great resonance is the one that he wrote for his dying father, urging him to fight for life. This poem has, in my mind, become a metaphor for the challenge to save species from extinction. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old men should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Thank you.